Hello, and greetings from my channel. My name is Kryles, and as much as I'd like to be a waterbender, most of my friends tell me that I would probably be a firebender. Which is fine, I'll take it. Azula is a badass anyways. So my laptop broke right after making my Are Guts and Griffith gay video. Guess my facts were too intense for my laptop to handle. But what I did to keep busy while waiting for my new laptop to come in was to finally rewatch Avatar: The Last Airbender now that it's on Netflix. Which, now that I'm an adult, I cry at literally anything that makes me slightly emotional, so there were lots and lots of tears while watching the show as a now 23-year-old, unlike when I was around 10 watching the show for the first time round. If you've seen The Last Airbender, and if you haven't, you really should go do that now, and you also just rewatched it when it was put on Netflix, you and I both know that this show is amazing. Not only is it a beautiful story, but it's also pretty mature for a TV Y7 rating, if you ask me. Here's to hoping that the Netflix live-action series takes the maturity level up to really let the show grow in its strong and powerful themes, and let it be nothing like the movie we don't talk about because it doesn't actually exist in my head. Now, following Aang and the original Team Avatar's adventures to restore balance to the world due to the Fire Nation's disruption of it, which, psst, they do win! And I don't want to hear any whining about spoilers, it's been 12 years since the finale. The makers of the show, Michael Dante DiMartino and Bryan Konietzko, made a follow-up series that takes place 70 years after the finale of The Last Airbender. In the new series, we follow the next Avatar in the lineage after Aang, 17-year-old Avatar Korra. Now, everyone in their cabbage stand seems to have an opinion when it comes to the series we all know as The Legend of Korra, but it seems to be that people really be hating on Korra. Like, people really do not stan her. Which I don't get, to be honest. Is it The Last Airbender? No, but it does well building on the world we received from the first series. Do I have my own gripes with the show? Yeah, but understanding some of the outside influences when it came to making the show lets me kind of see past those. For example, a big problem people see with The Legend of Korra as a show is that every season has a different story arc, but in my research, I discovered that every season of Korra was potentially going to be the only or the last season. Nick literally greenlit Korra season by season, so that's why the arcs of each season feel rushed or lacking in depth. Another big problem I have that a lot of people also have with the show, which could be fixed if Korra was picked up by Netflix for a live-action series as long as The Last Airbender does well, fingers crossed, is obviously the very rushed and thrown-in relationship of Korra and Asami in Book 4. Do I like the relationship as an idea? Yeah, I love it. However, there was really no development of their relationship in the show, and I think it would have been stronger if there had been. But obviously, it was 2016 and on a show made for kids, so I understand why DiMartino and Konietzko couldn't really expand on Korra-Asami more. And then the last big thing that I definitely don't love, and I totally agree with most views on this, is that Season 2 was boring and dumb to all hell. There are a few gems in that season, like the whole two-parter story of Wan and the origin of the Avatar cycle, but this season is one that would really need a good scrub and clean before it ever got redone. But despite these, I still really like Legend of Korra and the titular main character, which is not very popular on Twitter right now. People are slamming her on Twitter right now, and Netflix even had to step in to defend her. So I'm gonna try to use this video to defend her as well, because she's a very powerful character and deserves just as much respect as Aang in my opinion. So I'll be breaking down some of the biggest points that people seem to not like about Korra and tell you why you might be fanning over The Last Airbender too much, which blinds you to Korra and her story, which is actually a really good one. First and foremost, people love to say that the characters in Korra suck. I'm not going to go into full detail here, but I disagree. I think the cast is very dynamic, having at the forefront of interesting characters being Tenzin, Lin and Suyin Beifong, Jinora, Kaya, Bumi, and I know these characters are the offspring or descendants of Team Avatar, but that makes them true examples of the effects Team Avatar had on the world and its people. Plus, I'd rather have a sequel series dealing with the exploration of the impacts Team Avatar had than a slightly older Team Avatar dealing with new problems. Aang and the rest had their journey and it's over. You gotta let that go. Trust me, as a dungeon master of 3, soon to be 4 consecutive campaigns that take place in the same world, you have to learn when to let go of the old party and their stories so that new ones can be told. Plus, I think the returning characters from The Last Airbender were implemented with just the right amount. Except maybe Sokka? DiMartino and Konietzko really did Sokka dirty, not gonna lie. After them, you have a cast of lovable characters like Bolin, Varrick, Julie, Milo, and Ikki. Mako and Asami are both good characters in their own right, but I can understand the want for more out of them, which sometimes the show even pointed out the flaws with their writing with these two. Which is not just a Korra thing, The Last Airbender also pointed out its own writing flaws with the Ember Island players talking about the canyon episode. Also, as a heads up for most of this video, I'm going to excuse the rushed writing or lesser depth of these concepts because of how Korra was made in a season-by-season greenlit fashion. So if you don't like that,
sucks to be you, I guess.
Another brought up topic that I won't get too into is the setting. people really don't like the 20s steampunk, modernist, and static setting of Republic City, but I don't really mind it. I mean, listen, for The Last Airbender, it would make sense 70 years later with balance restored to the world that it would advance. And most of The Last Airbender is reflective of the mid-19th century settings of Eastern culture, so 1850-ish plus 70-some years would be around the 1920s era. Remember, it is a world basically comprised of Qing Dynasty China and Imperial Japan, with areas inspired by the cultures of the Tibetan monks and the Inuit people. And then topping all of that off is two writers that are American and on occasion throw Western influence in a world where our idea of the West doesn't exist. So Republic City is not really that off to me. Next, people like to say that Korra does not face any memorable villains. Are you kidding? First off, in my opinion, Korra's villains each, except maybe Unalaq and Vaatu, are all more dynamic than Ozai. I mean, let's be real, Ozai has no development really. He is evil for evil's sake and really only carries out the impending force of the Fire Nation through birthright. Sozin was the dynamic one, and Ozai was just the grandson driven by Sozin's ideals that got warped with each passing generation. Korra's enemies are much more developed, yes, even Unavaatu. But really, you're gonna tell me Amon, Zahir, and Kuvira are not dynamic nor memorable? Zahir, Korra's antagonist of Book 3, is by far the most interesting and exciting villain in the Avatar universe, period. So, ignoring Unavaatu, let's talk about the other three villains. Amon wanted to rid the world of bending to create equality, which was terrifying. Zahir wanted to dismantle the world's law and bending systems to make anarchical freedom, and Kuvira wanted to unify a nation to forego vulnerability and become a dictator. Like Toph said to Korra in the swamp, very Yoda/Luke style on Dagobah, each of Korra's villains had ideals that were rooted in good intentions, but each took their ideologies too far. Unlike Ozai, there are both sides to these villains that make them difficult for Korra to deal with and memorable in their ways of enacting their plans to reach their goals. Now, am I saying that every villain has to have some type of sad backstory or good intention ideology to make them dynamic? No, of course not. I mean, a great example is Azula from The Last Airbender. I know she was supposed to get a redemption arc, but what we got was great. We got a character who is evil just because she wants to be, which can be terrifying, engaging, and awesome in its own right. The problem with Ozai is he never got something like that. He was just the looming enemy figurehead that wanted to take over the world, whom we don't really even get to see do anything until the tail end of Book 3. And I mean, it's Mark Hamill, come on, you could have used him so much. But Korra's villains all have depth and weight to them in each season. They infiltrate the world by either using sympathetic ideals to get what they want or understandable ones to throw Korra off, because each villain's goal does have some genuine legitimacy to it. Also, tell me your mouths did not hit the floor when both Amon took away the first Bender's powers, or when Zahir toppled the Earth Kingdom by taking the Earth Queen's breathing away with air bending. Yeah, I'd say that was pretty memorable. Okay, so obviously the big one here is people hate Korra.
I hate
Korra! But why? I don't understand why people hate her. I can understand not liking her at first, but that's the whole point of her hero's journey here. Korra is not a bad character, and I'm sorry, but people really seem to forget that Korra has went through some serious shit. Stuff that we never saw Aang go through. And listen, Aang had horrible things happen to him as well. He was frozen in ice for 100 years, only to discover when he woke up that his entire culture and civilization had been eradicated. But just because Aang had some struggles doesn't mean that Korra didn't. Korra was the Avatar unlucky enough to be the one that lined up with harmonic convergence, which resulted in the escape of Vaatu, a spirit of pure evil, and the destruction of the now old Avatar past lives connection. Hot take, but I think any Avatar faced with this situation would have had just as hard of a time as Korra and probably the same result. Okay, maybe not Kyoshi, but Kyoshi is next level shit and we stand her, okay? But either way, she had to deal with the rest of her days as Avatar with no one but the light spirit Rava for guidance, unlike most of the Avatars preceding her. She dealt with people hating her in a world that thought it didn't need or want an Avatar anymore because it was in an age of peace and progress. Unlike Aang, who everyone saw as a symbol of hope because there was so much turmoil from the Fire Nation. People were pushing Aang and his ideals forward while keeping Korra's back. Korra also did not get to have a young childhood like Aang did. She showed capabilities of water, fire, and earthbending when she was 3, so she was the known Avatar by that moment. She was then sheltered away by the White Lotus because assassins from the Red Lotus attempted to kill her. All she had were her parents and her teachers. She was basically a trained fighter and only got to truly experience friendships, relationships, people, and the world when she left for Republic City in the first book. The way I see it, Aang's story was a compassionate human who learned to be an Avatar, while Korra's story was an Avatar who learned to be a compassionate human. Also, let's not forget that she was poisoned and then psychologically tortured by Zahir, resulting in her losing faith in herself and her abilities. The girl literally had physical therapy to overcome the trauma to her body via the poison, and had to overcome basically PTSD. Again, this is a kid's show? What? These are really tough traumas for anyone to go through. She had nearly everyone and everything pitted against her since she became the Avatar. Korra went through it. Stop comparing her to Aang. They're completely different stories and different experiences. Experiences that I honestly don't think Aang could handle because of not only their age differences, but because of their upbringings and experiences in life. Korra is a different avatar and just as valid. She is not a Mary Sue. She was training from 3 to 17 to master the first 3 bendings, and then she had to take a whole year when she was on her own to learn airbending with Tenzin. She is not Rey Skywalker, trust me. Blech. In all honesty, I saw one tweet that said something that really resonated with my feelings for defending Korra. Korra's bad attitude, cockiness, and eventual self-loathing were much more relatable than Aang's consistently solid morality and spiritual wisdom. Y'all just don't like her because she reflects the part of us that we might not be most proud of. That's the beauty of Korra's journey. She does overcome both these internal and external forces against her. She becomes a very understanding and kind avatar, evident when she spares and even saves Kuvira, telling her that she sees herself in this almost dictator-like character. Aang had his story and Korra had her story, and like Netflix on Twitter said, her story was just as important. So yeah, those are my thoughts on Korra. I loved rewatching both of these shows that were so important to me in both my early adolescence and then last few teen years. I'm so excited to see what will be brought with the universe now, considering that The Last Airbender has broken records on Netflix, and Korra was just announced to hit Netflix on August 14th. I also just started reading the book The Rise of Kyoshi, which tells Kyoshi's story of being the Avatar. So far, I'm really enjoying it, and will probably buy its sequel, which was just released last week. Also, if you really like Avatar, I would suggest to look up the comics that follow both The Last Airbender and The Legend of Korra. They give some really cool stories and insights to both groups of characters after the show. But yeah, let me know in the comments what bender you think you would be, or people tell you you would be, and why. Like I said, apparently people see me as a firebender, which I guess I am a little passionate sometimes. But if you like my content, please consider giving this video a like and a share, and please join my little YouTube family and subscribe. We're almost at 200 subscribers, which is really exciting. Maybe I'll do my second JoJo gay characters video for celebration. But other than that, stay safe and stay nerdy, and have a good one, friends.